Thank you. Yes, I'm going to take you from the large-scale level of cities and disasters that can happen to the micro level of workspace, and then specifically to the serviced offices. And why serviced offices? I'm sure that a lot of you have seen late in these last few years single-tenant offices that were suffering from vacancy problems being transformed into multi-tenant offices. It's a bit seen as the holy grail by the owners to do something with the office that's not desired by the organizations that are reducing space because of the activity-based working that they are adopting. And I questioned, together with one of my students who did his master thesis on this topic, what are these owners offering? Have they really thought about their users' preferences, or are they just copying what everybody else is doing and thinking, okay, this is a success formula, all I do is transform the building a bit and offer all the services I can think of, but I'm questioning, are they important really to the users? Because if we look at these serviced office buildings, a lot of times they are very similar buildings. We have the more modern buildings, and we have increasingly we also see old industrial buildings being redeveloped into serviced offices, but they have similar kind of layouts, similar kind of services, long lists of services. And if we look at these user types, it's not all the same users types working in these buildings. Some people go to serviced offices to hold meetings or to work as a team, while others might go to work in between meetings because they are in that city and think, I need an office space. And others use it as a regular office. So we questioned, do these people want the same thing? Do they find the same services important or different ones? Depending perhaps also on the activities that you are doing in these serviced offices. Are you doing concentrated work or collaborative work? And maybe even your household situation and your income and other personal characteristics might influence your preferences. We know this from the many studies on single-tenant offices, and in the multi-tenant office sector there's not that much research yet. And so maybe you have a busy family with a lot of small children, and you just want to get away from all the noise at home and find a quiet place, and while others might come to collaborate. So today I will only briefly, it's not a research session, go into the theory on serviced offices and users that does exist, and explain the survey methodology that we used, and then quickly go on to the results to show you what we found and give you some conclusions. Have both some recommendations to the practitioners in this room, but also of course some suggestions for further research for the researchers in this room. So to make sure that we were all talking about the same kind of offices, we put a definition of what we understand as a serviced office. And we see this as a fully furnished office space within a building that is let or sublet or licensed to third parties on a serviced basis. And the services comprise all kind of building services and generally also a lot of additional services to support businesses in other ways. And the business model is quite simple. They are trying to convert the fixed costs of the companies themselves to variable costs, and in that sense transfer a bit of the risk of owning real estate to another party. And it should be a one-stop shop. You should be able to get all the services that you desire and find the facilities and spaces that you are looking for. But we see in the Netherlands, and I think in a lot of other European countries at least, I'm not so familiar with other regions, we also see that a lot of these serviced offices are increasingly designing part of their office, usually the ground floor, into a co-working space. So we see this kind of hybrid concept coming into existence. And in this co-working space, you see other types of users getting in to work into the building, and they are mainly coming there because of the immaterial benefits. So not so much of all the services, but they are coming there to share knowledge and network with other small companies. So if we look at the market, we see a few large international operators, like Regis, who kind of is the first, the starter of all these types of offices, but now there's many others. And they focus mostly on a mix of large corporates and SMEs. But we also locally see a lot of small operators, and they kind of focus more on local small companies, freelancers, startups, so they have a kind of different population. So there's a very broad tenant group. Okay, this is not the last presentation that I emailed, but don't mind the red. The methodology that we used, as I said, we put out a questionnaire and we asked for importance on a perceived scale, a five-point scale. And we questioned people in 13 different serviced offices in the Netherlands, and in total we had 137 respondents. And these were very different offices, all in Dutch cities, but some of them were large, some of them were small. There were newly built modern offices, but also these revitalized industrial buildings. So it was a very diverse set of offices. And we asked for 3 organizational characteristics, 4 demographic characteristics, 7 job characteristics, and 8 purposes of use. So we asked them, why are you coming here to work? And because we didn't want to do too many analysis, because we found, looking at the websites and in the theory what kind of services were offered, we found 31 different services and facilities. We didn't want to do 31 analysis, so we did something called PCA, which is a method that looks for factors within the data and looks, well, which variables are actually testing the same construct. And that way we were able to group almost all of these variables, all these services, into 6 factors, and we only had 4 separate services and facilities left. So then we only had to do 10 analysis. And that saves us a lot of time to stay within the 20 minutes that I have. So these 6 groups of services, one of them is more the general building services, like cleaning and maintenance, amenities, of course, all the extras like a gym and a childcare service, technology services from more complicated aspects up to simple technology like printing, supportive services, like the secretary, having different types of spaces. How diverse are these? Do we have conference room? Do we have outdoor spaces? And the last category we called interactive, because it grouped things like networking, services, workshops with social meeting spaces. So it grouped services and spaces together that all were designed to meet, to have people meet. So let's first have a look at which ones are the most important services, which most people find important. So all these services here are mentioned as either important, the light green, or very important, the dark green. And you see that cleaning and maintenance is at the top, with 79% of people finding this important or very important. Also small conference rooms, and of course the coffee and tea machine, very important service. But we also see that still a lot of people like this private fixed workplace in these type of offices. So the activity-based working that we see at the single tenant offices is not always appreciated apparently in the serviced offices. The space has to be available for extensive opening hours with sufficient technology, advanced climate control, a pantry, security. These kind of aspects were considered most important. So these have to be offered by all these operators. I also had a slide with the less important ones, but apparently it's not on the screen. So I'm going to get my notes, because I do have a print of that one, I think. And the least important ones, so the ones that you could ask as an operator, do I really need to offer these? On the top was the smoking area. 97% said it's not important. So that's a good thing, I guess, that we don't have a lot of smokers anymore in the Netherlands, and they don't really care about this. But we also saw a lot of non-work related services. So I was thinking, well, a lot of serviced office operators think we have to offer everything. We have to offer childcare, we have to offer gym, entertainment. But all these were at the bottom of our list. So not less than 20%, 30% of people said this is an important service in this type of office. And so we could wonder if this is really important and if it's a way to save money as an operator. So here are the results of the second step of our study, where we looked at, well, does anything influence this type, this importance of services, of specific services? And so we looked on top here, you see these 6 groups with the same drawings that I made for it. And then you see 4 additional ones, because these were annoying services. They didn't want to go into our group analysis. So we treated them as separate variables. So this one means having multiple locations, being able to work in different cities in the same office operator, having your own postal address, catering services, and having an outdoor area. So I'll quickly go walk you through this, because I know you're not all researchers here, and show you a little bit what we found. Well, if you look at the personal and the organizational aspects, you see that there's not that many influence of this. And that kind of surprised us, because we thought, well, these offices are aiming sometimes at specific types of organizations, they are targeting specific employees, and apparently this doesn't really influence what they find important, which services. And mostly we see, if we look at the personal characteristics, like age, the household composition, that they mostly influence in this column, which is called the interactive services. And so what I said, the social meeting space, the workshops, that kind of services. And we found that the older people, and I won't define when you were old, found this more important than the younger people, which kind of surprised me again. And we also found that the lower educational level and lower income level, which of course often correlates with each other, not fully, but also found this more important. And that got us thinking a bit, why could this be? I mean, we don't know the answer to that. But it might be that these are the startup firms trying to get more business and coming to this office to meet others and hoping to increase their level of income. But of course, I'm not sure, so this should be studied further. If we look at job characteristics, for example, how much time do you spend at the serviced office? Is it your fixed office? Are you always there, or are you just having meetings there? And then we see that those that do not spend so much time at the office care more about having the possibility to work at multiple locations, because they're probably traveling around a bit more. But those spend a lot of time there, they really like that they have their own postal address, which makes sense. So nothing new or interesting there, you could say. More interesting is that we also asked, can you influence accommodation decisions? Because there are small companies in these offices and large ones. And there we see that those that can influence accommodation decisions thought that the supportive services and the amenities are not so important as their employees. And so I'm saying to these organizations, well, maybe you should ask your employees what they find important. And I'll finish, because that's the sign that I only have 1 minute left. If we look at the purposes, we saw the most logical and the most strong relationships. And so if you want to come here to work as a team, you find the interactive services important. If you come here to work in a certain atmosphere as well. And so we found very logical results. I'll leave it at this if the time is up.
Thank you very much, Rianne. Thank you very much.